Have you ever heard of Overwatch?
Nope, but you seen that ass. Filthy freak. In 2016, Overwatch 1 was crowned Game of the Year at the appropriately named 2016 Game Awards. It was lauded as a AAA phenomenon, a revolution against lazy video game companies churning out sequels of properties that were far past their prime. I'm not going to name any names. As of 2024, however, its sequel Overwatch 2 is more well known for being a twisted reflection of its predecessor, a corruption of the spirit and passion that Overwatch 1 upheld. What happened? Why are two games that are functionally identical in terms of gameplay to this day crowned as the black and white swans of their developer Blizzard? Why was I hyper-focused on this game as a child? Why does a game that has an entire Wikipedia page just dedicated to the porn produced by its fan base also make me bawl tears? Hi, my name is Sophia, and I'm the monster under your bed. It's really cute. Look at it, isn't it just like the cutest thing, just like me? This little monster contains all the fear your mind holds, and today's fear is broken promises. Which might not sound that bad, but once you realize that you'd promised your best friend that you'd pick her up, and then in the middle of nowhere, and then all of a sudden you completely forgot because you didn't take your medications, it's kind of scary. Last time you were here, and you were, I provided you with a way to experience the Lovecraftian fishing game Dredge. We dove deep into the lore, its Lovecraftian roots, everything you need to know to be obsessed and want to play it without having to take a single penny out of your pocket. This time will be a little different. The problem is that the Overwatch franchise, well, Overwatch 2 because Overwatch 1 isn't around anymore, is a solely multiplayer experience. It wasn't supposed to be, but we'll get to that. I'm going to be saying that a lot. We'll get to that. So while there are heaps of story, lore, and really interesting character development, behind the scenes drama, its core gameplay does depend on others. Ideally. Nobody really cares about pushing the payload when they could get play of the game and show off the skin that they spent $40 American dollars on. There's also the problem of Overwatch 2, the problem being that it is dog water. Pee-pee and poo-poo dog water. I cannot make a video about experiencing Overwatch 1 without really driving in the betrayal that was Overwatch 2. As such, this video is only one part of a multiple part series. Each section will be split into half. One part talking about Overwatch 1 and the other part about Overwatch 2. Each of these sections will be released as its own separate video. I will make a playlist once I have made more so you can just watch one after the other. And once every single installment has been released, it will be released into a video essay of titanic proportions. Please pray for my poor little laptop. It's gonna burn out. So, here's what we're going to talk about. First off, we are going to talk about the nuts and bolts of Overwatch 1 and 2, who made the Overwatch franchise, the numerous controversies leading up to and on release, how Overwatch 1 and 2 works, basically like the dust jacket, which I can read to you right now because of my Overwatch 1 Origins edition. Clash on the battlefields of tomorrow and take your place in the ranks of Overwatch, trademark. A legendary force of soldiers, scientists, adventures, and oddities. Bend time, defy physics, and wield extraordinary powers in the ultimate team-based shooter. We will talk about what a team-based shooter is later. I'll also be talking about the bad omens leading up to Overwatch 2's release, like, you know, the time a bunch of employees named a hotel room the Cosby Suite. That's going to be fun to talk about. Next up will be the review. While I played Overwatch 1 as much as was physically possible with parental controls on, which wasn't much, it was like an hour a day, I have not played Overwatch 2. I refuse to give Blizzard any indication that they are succeeding in that venture. However, my friend Tristan also had an Overwatch phase, and he did cave to the evil twin of Overwatch 1, and he has played Overwatch 2 semi-extensively. He doesn't have a lot of morals, but I trust his judgment. You might be asking, why is there a review about a game that came out almost 10 years ago? Oh my god, 2016 was almost 10 years ago, oh lord. That is because, like I said, Overwatch 1 and 2 were a multiplayer experience. It's important to understand not just everything about the games, but the gameplay. What was it like to join a queue? Would you fight against people that were on your level? You didn't. What was it really like? Did people like it? Next up is the lore section. I info dumped to my parents about Overwatch in middle school, and I cannot wait to do it again to a bunch of strangers. Overwatch exists in a universe that is kind of like an alternate history, futuristic kind of world that has a lot of themes of humanity banding together against technology, and it's honestly more important now with the rise of AI. The AI in Overwatch is called the Omnic. Keep that in mind, keep that in your little back pocket. And there's a little Avengers Civil War sprinkled in there. Some character conflict, you know. trauma. Its message and tagline of the world could always use more heroes did get me through a pretty dark time in my life. So I am going to be a tad reverent when discussing the Overwatch 1 section of the lore. However, Overwatch 2 means nothing to me. And it created a bunch of plot holes, like magic and timeline inconsistencies. I will bring out the whiteboard for the timeline, don't you worry. It will be color-coded. ADHD brain needs color coding. Next, we will talk about the animated shorts that were released along with Overwatch. They're free to watch on YouTube. I highly recommend them. They are masterclasses in storytelling. Cannot recommend them enough. They are what got me into Overwatch, and they are really its heart. Next, we will discuss the change in business strategies between Overwatch 1 and Overwatch 2. We will not just be talking about the very egregious battle pass and scummy monetization of Overwatch 2. We will also discuss, how Overwatch 1's loot boxes got banned in the EU because they promoted underage gambling. We will mourn the promised changes to Overwatch 2, like the PvE, the change in management. R.I.P. Jeff Kaplan. He's not dead, but I miss him. Just basically why on earth Blizzard promised so many things, delivered them in the first half, and then just threw us off a skyscraper. The final section will discuss the hero Kiriko. Now, I support a girl boss. I come from a long line of girl bosses. We have gaslight and gay-kept our way through the countries and the centuries for many a millennia, just because we're better than our adversaries, and when we weren't, we made them wish they were never born. However, I cannot stand a badly written female character that breaks all the laws of her universe. Kiriko was kind of the tipping point, or at least she is the perfect example of everything that was good about Overwatch 2 and how everything just got completely screwed over. Scummy monetization, not very well thought out changes to the lore, everything's wrong with her, and I will never say I hate her, but I hate those that made her. First note before we begin, I am aware that Diva has pink bunny whisker things, but I don't have any pink body paint, and it would very much blend in with the rest of my face. I am very pink. And also, we're in mourning for Overwatch 1 and how badly Overwatch 2 came out. So, that's why they're black. I'm gonna flex my jacket real quick. You can't get these anymore. Okay, you're ready, I'm ready. Let's go get sexually harassed for being a woman in the gaming space. Alright, let's get the basics down. For the record, I'm going to refer to Overwatch 1 as O1 and Overwatch 2 as O2. Can be a mouthful after you've said it so many times. I recorded this whole video last night at 1 a.m. but there were so many frogs and crickets outside that it was the exact same level of noise interference as when there were cicadas. And I realized that I was just continuously messing up, and I'd be like, which one? So, O1, O2, Overwatch franchise, Overwatch. O1 was released May 24th, 2016. It was in closed and open beta before release, with the open beta drawing in almost 10 million players. I was not one of those 10 million players. I was depressed, and also I probably would have told you that I was an alpha. Once it was released, it got overwhelmingly positive reviews from both critics and stinky gamers for Overwatch's very unique designs, its highly flexible play style, and Widowmaker's ass. I'm really sorry. I'm not gonna objectify you anymore. I'm sorry, women. She's been through a lot. Overwatch falls into the FPS and hero shooter genre. This particular combination set off a still active feud 10 years later. I can't say 10 years later. Oh my god, that's terrifying to think about. I'm probably going to cry about how old I feel in a moment, but that would mess up my makeup. Heartbreak is one thing, my ego's another. Whatever. Endless rivalry. TF2, Team Fortress 2, and O1 share a lot of similarities. They are both hero shooters, and if you don't know what a hero shooter is, it's a genre where you have a fairly large roster of characters. Well, actually no, in the case of TF2 there's not as many, which allows you to pick a different metaphorical toolkit every time that the battle changes. Each character has very distinct abilities for those specific instances, and overall hero shooters allow for a extremely variable and dynamic sort of gameplay if you're a pro gamer. If you aren't a pro gamer, it means you get to pick the coolest character, and no matter who you pick, you are going to get yelled at. TF2, like I said, has a much smaller roster of characters, but that didn't stop its community from drawing parallels between every single character's abilities. Me and my friend Devin tried to do this at one point. We made a spreadsheet of all the abilities that TF2 characters had and which ones correlate to Overwatch 1 characters' abilities, it was a very good example of why this is such a stupid argument, because there are only so many ways that you can say this power revives a teammate. That's just a standard power that a lot of games will have. The feud is still ongoing, because no matter what side you fall on, the apparent superiority complex that the other side has is infuriating enough that you immediately draw Rule 34 art of your favorite character railing the shit out of the most annoying character from the other franchise. As someone that has played both TF2 and 01, this feud is stupid. Is genuinely stupid. Of course, Tracer and Scout are going to share a lot of similarities. They are both squishy DPSs that use speed to get out of certain circumstances. Of course, yes, Medic and Mercy are both people that figured out how to conquer death. But guess what? One of them didn't pass medical school, and the other one might be immortal. There's a huge difference. It's just so stupid, genuinely. Because there are only so many different ways that you can reinvent a power. People complain about Sniper and Widowmaker sharing similarities, but it's like, how else are you going to design a sniper? They need a sniper rifle. They don't want to have a huge hitbox because then the other sniper will probably be able to hit them a lot easier. I just don't know what you want. The aesthetic, the message, the gameplay, just the overall vibe of both games is so wildly different. The only reason I could think of this feud happening is because people wanted something to complain about. In that way, gamers are very similar to K-pop stans. I don't think I'll elaborate on that. 01 was released by Blizzard Entertainment, which is an American game studio that has published a lot of other popular video games, such as World of Warcraft, the Diablo franchise, Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm. If you've been in a gaming space for any sort of period of time, you've heard about these games. I actually wanted to work at Blizzard when I was a wee child, because Blizzard was the only game company that I really knew by name. I'm really glad I didn't go to work there. The most important member of the development team for the purposes of this video is Jeff Kaplan, who was one of 3 directors of 01, and he is probably one of the most beloved video game directors in recent memory. 01 started out with 21 playable characters to pick from, which extended to 32 by the time that Overwatch's servers were shut down. These characters fell into the offense, defense, tank, and healer categories until a switch occurred that consolidated the offense and defense categories into one: damage. I don't really know why they did this. To me, having that distinction between offense and defense really encouraged players to see Overwatch as a strategic game, one that you have to plan out with. Okay, where is the defense going to be? Keep them away from the point. How are we going to protect the payload? Things like that. But I think for a lot of people, you don't get to that level of thinking that the game's on such a more complex level unless they really got good. This skill would be awarded in giving players ranks if you played competitive mode. These ranks were Bronze, Silver, Gold, Platinum, Diamond, Master, Grandmaster, and Top 500. The Top 500 players were in a certain area, district, and they included players that were in the Overwatch League, which was the competitive esports league for 01. I'm going to touch on the Overwatch League later in the business practices section, but what you really just need to know is that it was demolished because of the pandemic. The characters that you could play as in Overwatch came from all over the globe. Mexico, the Netherlands. Is Torbjorn Dutch? Oh my god, hold on. Torbjorn. No, he's Swiss, right? Sweden, Japan, Germany. I'm probably going to end up telling you all the stories behind all of my little figures in my cookbook. This is actually a great cookbook. But this guy was from a random pack, and it was really cool. He was gold, and then I had him on a keychain on my backpack, and then he broke off, laid on the road where my family's car parked outside of our home, and we found him again. And then I have the other version of him, but normal, so it's kind of boring. It doesn't have a story. I've never seen Overwatch 1 get shit on for cultural appropriation or stereotyping, and that's because the characters are really well done. They are never stereotyped, they are never reduced to their nationalities, and while there are a lot of voice lines and skins that will reference certain traditions, festivals, like the Lunar Festival for example, their personalities are never playing second fiddle to their ethnicities, which was really cool. Growing up as a half American, half Colombian who didn't see a lot of representation and was unmedicated and probably would have identified with the white Tina lady, I'm past that, okay? I had character development. It was a dark time. We're not gonna talk about it anymore. It was refreshing to see characters from all over the globe, particularly women, shoot things in their native languages and to be on the same level as other male characters. Nobody really talks about this when discussing the pros of Overwatch, and that's probably because most of the videos that I have seen talking about it were made by white American men, presumably, who aren't really starved of representation and also probably don't really understand why it's just nice to play as a purple girly hacker from Mexico. Even if I sucked, it was still really cool to see myself in a video game that I really liked. And while we're at it, let women suck at video games. Sombra was my main, you can tell. I really was really bad at her, but like, that doesn't mean I'm not as worthy. Let women suck at video games. Whatever, you don't care. The characters would be chosen by 2 teams of 6. Each team would pick from the roster completely separate of each other, so there could be Torbjorns on both teams. It wasn't like the roster is open to both teams and sometimes you just won't be able to play the character that you want. You always had that option unless another teammate had already picked it, in which case someone's gonna get yelled at. From there, a player could pick from different types of game modes, such as quick play, which is like the basic Overwatch, which are the payload and capture the point modes. Payload is either escort the payload to point A or stop it from getting to point A. Capture the point is how long can you stay on this little circle and keep everyone else off. That one was most fun for me because then I'd just be like, that was a pretty good reenactment of my game footage. I would just avoid everything because then I'd die as soon as I faced anyone. Back to what I was saying about the diverse characters, there were a lot of seasonal events based around the nationalities of a bunch of them, such as Chinese New Year for May. I hate May. The Summer Olympics, Winter Wonderland, which was kind of a general, there was snow on the ground and we are getting cozy, and a Halloween-themed event called Frankenstein's Revenge. These events incentivize players to get back to the game, grind, and get those really cool exclusive cosmetics, which were always bangers. The skins for every seasonal event have always just... they slapped. They really did. Lucio Ball was, during the Summer Olympics, was my favorite event because Lucio was my second main. I don't have him here. And I really love soccer, so we're like death. To this day, while I'm driving on the highway sometimes and like speeding up to pass someone, sometimes I will still say, "Time to accelerate!" What a life I live. These cosmetics were super, super important to O1's monetization, which normally relied on the initial purchase of the game, which I'm going to get to the prices to in a second, and buying cosmetics with either in-game currency or whatever your chosen type of currency is. The prices for Overwatch would be $40 for the standard PC version, $60 for the Game of the Year edition for PC, PS4, and Xbox One, and the collector's edition was $130 for all the aforementioned platforms. My Origins edition, which was for my stinky little laptop, I love you, was around $60 from what I remember, and it was bought for me by my abuelita. I have a message for my abuelita. If you're not my abuelita, get out of here! Abuelita, muchísimas gracias por comprarme Overwatch hace tantos años. Yo no sabía que podías comprar esperanza, pero tú me la diste. Yo he aprendido mucho y de verdad me cambiaste la vida. Y gracias, muchísimas gracias por ver los 2 videos de Dredge, aunque no entiendes ninguna palabra. Te amo. Okay, I've never had emotions and I never will, and you didn't understand any of that because you're a stupid monolingual. Besides the initial purchase of the game, you could buy in-game cosmetics. However, at the time, those cosmetics could only be gained by getting loot boxes. Loot boxes function as a sort of gacha system. Randomized cosmetics will be inside there. You can get duplicates, which is just stupid. These cosmetics could be common, rare, epic, or legendary. The more special they are, the rarer they are, obviously. I will touch on loot boxes later in the business strategy section and the hilarity of the EU being like, "Oh mon dieu, you cannot promote gambling to my little son Sergio. He's not ready. He's already on his 10th cigarette of the day. You are stressing him out." The important thing to remember about loot boxes in O1 was that they did not affect gameplay. They were only visual perks, different skins, different stickers that you could spray everywhere. While they could be purchased with actual money, it It was fairly easy to get loot boxes or get in-game currency to buy loot boxes by completing in-game achievements or by doing certain game modes. These game modes got Overwatch a lot of awards, like a lot. This was because of two things. One, it was developed by a AAA company that knew its audience, knew how to give them what they wanted. Overwatch 1's gameplay appealed to a huge demographic of gamers because of its simplicity and excellent execution. You could tell that every single aspect had been planned out and was done with a lot of care and passion. It was high quality, simple as that. The second reason was because Overwatch is not based on a pre-existing property. No books, no old TV show, nothing like that. It was 100% original. And it had a solid core idea in its tagline, the world could use more heroes. That was the heart of Overwatch, allegedly. And it was exemplified in the character's motivation, the lore, how many little extra things were released along with Overwatch 1, like the animated shorts. It was clear that the developers had so many ideas for how this story could be conveyed, and they came out with comics, figures, and it was all just done with a lot of care. I know I'm kind of expected to make a cynical joke about how, oh well, at the end of the day, it's just another video game in the grand scheme of things, like, I don't even know why you care like that. And yeah, the people that made it wanted to make money off of it, but guess what? That's a normal thing to want to do. They wanted to make bank, and they did it well. But it meant something to me. Things are allowed to matter, even if they don't matter to everyone. Let's go to the Overwatch 2 section to find out what really lies at the heart of it. Nothing. You might be wondering why I have a sombrero volteado and I'm holding a sombrero in my hand. That's because Colombia just lost the Copa Americana, with Shakira performing, and Maluma in the stands, and Karol G singing our national anthem. Therefore, I figured I'm in mourning. A sombrero's here because I have re-recorded this part twice. One time, the phone that I'm recording with died. The second time, what was it? My phone overheated because I was charging it, and I'm done. My makeup was smeared. I don't care. So she's here for luck. Overwatch 2 was initially touted as a reinvention of the sequel. It was going to be a completely separate experience from Overwatch 1, and players were hyped for it because of the story missions, interactive lore missions that would allow players to finally participate in the world of Overwatch. They'd been clamoring for it for years, and finally, Overwatch 2, The Promised Land, was announced on November 1st, 2019 at BlizzCon, which is like a Blizzard exclusive convention, which I would like to go, theoretically, to one day, but I don't like clients or stinky people. I feel like that's an accurate description of what BlizzCon is like. Jeff Kaplan, my GOAT, introduced it as a, like I said, reinvention of the sequel. He said that he actually had to justify the unusual changes made to it, which I'll talk about in a second, to executives. Please, you have to understand people are going to hate us if we do the things that you're thinking about and will eventually happen. Please, for the love of God, don't do this to us. Okay? Please! Okay, you put up a whole PowerPoint presentation. I think Coke was involved, considering that the changes that I think executives plan to make happen later on. I don't think they would listen to reason. I think they would listen to cocaine. The unusual point that Jeff Kaplan had to argue to executives was that players would retain all their old cosmetics, Overwatch 1 would continuously be supported alongside Overwatch 2, and that the two games would exist in a shared multiplayer environment where nobody gets left behind. Any new heroes, maps, special game modes would be added to both games. Basically, Jeff Kaplan is my Princess Diana, a man of the people, you know how it is. Besides that shared multiplayer environment, the other changes to the Overwatch formula would be as follows. O2 would contain individual character skill trees, PvE, and hero missions, which, if you look up, are going to be referred to as story missions because they would be interactive lore quests, essentially. You're going to hear story missions used interchangeably, but the difference is that PvE refers to players versus NPCs pretty much. This would be a group mission. 4 people, you go through the whole thing, while individual hero missions would be just you, the player, doing this hero mission for a specific character from Overwatch. These would both increase the lore, and they would kind of move forward. O1 was kind of stuck in this like limbo of we can't move forward because that's the whole plot of our game. Overwatch 2 was the whole like, let's rise up against the Omnics, against the AI, and you gotta move the story forward. So this would be what players had been screaming, crying, throwing up, begging Blizzard to add to the game for years. Blizzard said, we got you. Kind of. The hero customization skill trees that I talked about would rely on players completing non-PvP missions. PvP is real person versus real person. PvE, real person versus NPCs. The more non-PvP missions that a player completed, the more experience points you would get to level up the skill tree. Probably. Blizzard never released that. Not just because they didn't want to, but the O2 rollout was already not looking very promising. It was messy and mired in controversy. While it had been announced in 2019, O2 kind of sat in purgatory for a while. There were not a lot of updates coming out for either O2 or O1. And this was probably because the whole in-game plot of Overwatch 1 was, we're gonna get together. Oh my god, it's so great to see you. I haven't seen you in years. I thought you were dead. You're not dead. You wanna go shoot things together? Yeah. And while Blizzard could add on to the characters' backstories and to more events that had happened in the past, they were kind of stuck. They would have to move forward, except the team probably wasn't even ready or planning to release a story mode. Overwatch had a rich history, but it very much felt like it was focused on playing with other people. In my opinion, I think that O2 was announced to stall. The fan base had been clamoring for story mode, and the team probably wasn't even ready to release that, or maybe even considering releasing it in O1. So the promise of a sequel with a projected release date that wasn't really clear would be a convenient way to get players off their back and also say, like, we are going to give you everything you want, you just gotta wait. Be patient. Trust us. You should not have trusted them. And then the lawsuit happened, and things get a little sad. The lawsuit that happened in Minecraft, because everything is alleged, ongoing, nothing is real in this world. I don't think I even know what real life is. Is that even a drink? Is this even the time? Where am I? Real quick, if you're uncomfortable with mentions of workplace abuse towards women, particularly women of color, mentions of suicide, what you do need to know is that basically Blizzard was never made aware of the Me Too movement. Some people were fired. Doesn't feel like any really big important changes were made. And the lawsuit happened in mid-2021. You are going to skip to the timestamp right there. Go on ahead. Take care of yourself. We'll see you in a second. On July 20th, 2021, the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing filed a lawsuit against Blizzard Entertainment, stating that the management had allowed and at times encouraged sexual misconduct against female employees, which perpetuated a company culture that put women down at every single opportunity, and that Blizzard's hiring and employment practices were discriminatory against women, particularly women of color, who would not only suffer sexist treatment, language, etc., but also racially motivated slights, probably slurs. It's also a gaming space. This lawsuit was the result of a 2-year investigation, which is important because it means that the same year that O2 was announced, the investigation began. I'm going to be a little cynical and say that not only was O2 a convenient way to stall, it was also possibly insurance when the investigation concluded. If fans were paying attention to their fun new little game that was coming out, they wouldn't pay attention to the fact that apparently Blizzard's HR department did not keep sexual harassment reports confidential. This matters because if it's not confidential, the person that you just reported against can pull out the paper and be like, oh, what have you done? And then retaliate against you for reporting them for sexual harassment. This retaliation could be anything from denying promotions, keeping female employees away from more desirable projects that would allow them to move up the ranks, or just being flat out misogynistic and groping women all the time. I don't see enough YouTubers talk about this lawsuit when the O2 rollout is discussed, and maybe that's because they're thinking, oh, well, this is about Overwatch 2, about the game. We're not going to talk about the lawsuit, it's a different problem. But it's intertwined, and it's also maybe because the channels are scared of Blizzard stomping its big old feet on them, but I have subscribers in the double digits, so I don't care. Also, all of this happened in Minecraft. This is a very complicated roleplay server. Did you not know about that? It was just me. I was role-playing everybody. Actually, no, I don't want to do that. The lawsuit is important. This wasn't just Blizzard and how the public opinion of O2 was affected. A bunch of women came forward and said, yeah, I'm not seen as an equal in my workplace because I'm a woman. In a video game industry where women's boobs are kind of seen as these jiggly balloons that can be manipulated in any way they want in both the video game and in real life, apparently. The female employees at Blizzard, their experiences ranged a lot. They could be anything from male employees playing video games during work hours and putting the work on the women, and then the female employees not receiving compensation for their increased workload, to sadly a woman apparently committing suicide on a business trip because employees were sharing nude photos of her at a company holiday party. That's lower level corruption. These were everyday employees. However, it stretched to the highest levels too, particularly the former creative director of World of Warcraft. I say former because he was fired, but he was there for years. Alex Afrasiabi, who was specifically named as a center of many allegations regarding misconduct. Another employee who engaged in sexual misconduct that is important to note is Jesse McCree. This Jesse McCree, the game character, was named after a real-life employee of Blizzard, Jesse McCree. Now, Jesse McCree, from what we know, was a flaming bag of trash. I'm gonna put you down. He was also featured in one of the many pictures that have come out of the Cosby Crew group chat, which is not a hotel room that is officially named that, but it was the cute little nickname for Alex Afrasiabi's hotel room for 2013 BlizzCon and onwards. And it was nicknamed as such because of Alex's tendency to hit on female employees, try and kiss them, to touch them inappropriately, generally do everything he could to remind them that they were his underlings that he could get rid of at any passing moment. Like Bill Cosby, except he raped women. And Alex hasn't been convicted of anything. I'm calling him Alex because I figured that's what his mom calls him, and I don't believe that any man should abuse a woman and not be reminded of the fact that the only reason they exist is because a woman loved them before they were born. Kind of good note about Jesse McCree, the video game character. A lot of people complained about the fact that this abuser was working at Blizzard and that this character, who was completely fictional and had presumably not engaged in any of these behaviors, was still named after him. So Blizzard renamed Jesse McCree, the video game character, to Cole Cassidy, which is cool, and they fired Jesse McCree. It's kind of a win. I'll get to that in a second. I don't feel like it really is a win to fire individuals when this is a systemic problem. Final note about the lawsuit before I get to the rest of the O2 rollout. I can't help but feel that Blizzard has not changed after this. Yes, multiple employees found to be engaging in sexual harassment and misconduct were fired, but it feels like the men in power were looking for scapegoats. Oh, I didn't do all that, or I did and I don't care and I don't think I should be in trouble for it, so it's his fault. However, this lawsuit specifically mentions frat boy culture. If you're not from the US, a fraternity is an all-male society that can be joined once you hit college, and they don't have a good rep in the US. They're known for promoting sexist practices, languages, behavior within their members. They have dangerous hazing rituals, and they are overall known for creating a space that promotes toxic masculinity at its most effective when young men are entering a new phase of their lives and they've lost all their previous connections and they're trying to make new ones, and they'll do anything to keep them. Now, I have friends in frats that are fine. Love ya. There have been a lot of changes made, a lot of hazing rituals have been banned from fraternities. However, there are still parties at my university hosted by frat parties that I won't go to because I know that the boys in that frat drug drinks and grope women. What matters in the case of Blizzard is that this isn't just individuals that can be fired and the problem is solved. This is a system, a culture. You can't cut out the proverbial tumor of Blizzard to save its body. Something deeper and more widespread has to happen. If even the worst offenders are fired up here, you're leaving all the other guys who maybe are not this bad, but they are this bad. Also, one of the guys in the Cosby Crew pictures, which by the way, were posted by Alex on his Facebook account in 2013, labeled as such for the public to see, one of the men in these pictures was an executive of HR at Blizzard. So, but you don't care about that, so let's get back to video games. In case you forgot, here's where we are. Overwatch 2 was announced in 2019, 3 years after Over 1. I'm over 1 years old, I'm 2 years old now. Then it sat in purgatory for a bit. The Blizzard sexual harassment scandals happens in mid-2021. We are so back. That might not have been necessary for the people that did watch the entire lawsuit section. However, this morning, the morning that I wrote this script, I was watching Nicole Raffi video from her Chronically Online Girl series. Nicole Raffi's a big inspiration of mine. I love her. This one was about Brat the album by Charlie XCX. And at one point she says Von Dutch, which is a song on Brat by Charlie XCX. I then remembered Amanda from Smosh saying something like, oh, I had a Von Dutch hat right after they were popular, and I was like, oh my god, what does a Von Dutch hat look like? And then I opened up my search bar, I closed out of YouTube, and I was like, what was I looking up? So I had to go back to the video. I had to go back 20 seconds, and then I heard Von Dutch, and then I looked up the hats. This is what Von Dutch hats look like, by the way. A real tragedy is about to happen now. Jeff Kaplan leaves Blizzard. This was a shock horror gasp for everyone involved, even me. And keep in mind, I'm not really online. I'm kind Even as a wee child, I wasn't even about that life. But the fact that even I heard about it, crazy. I even included it in this video that I made for high school. I was really funny, and my hair was horrible and my skin was too, but I was funny. What is important to note about Jeff's departure, I'm gonna call him Jeff not because of the thing I mentioned about Alex, but because he seems like a cool dude. So Jeff. He did not leave after the lawsuit. He left a few months before, in April 2021. Now there's a lot of speculation as to why, and again, I'm surprised nobody's bringing up the lawsuit. Jeff did seem to care a lot about the Overwatch community, which did include women. He was married to a woman, and he was apparently dearly missed by his team, which presumably contained women. We could be cynical and say that he left just to avoid the controversy, not because he actually cared about the women affected, or because he only disagreed with Overwatch 2's direction, which we will see went immediately downhill. Because Jeff was probably the last bastion of sanity within Blizzard executives. I think, however, it is possible that, yes, he wanted to avoid the controversy because he wasn't a part of it, he didn't agree with it, he might have left out a protest. I don't know. What I do know is that his message upon leaving Blizzard is one that I hope didn't come from a cruel man. Let's say that he didn't care about the lawsuit. What were some other reasons that Jeff Kaplan would have left Blizzard? Now's the time to bring up the early access. It began on October 4th, 2022, and it was a disaster in literally every single way possible. The servers were facing a huge amount of players and immediately overloaded, which I feel like Blizzard should have accounted for it. Overwatch is not a small game, neither is Blizzard a small company. I'm sure a bunch of people were there to farm content for it. So why would you only prepare your servers for a much smaller load of players? Like, it just does not make sense to me. In addition to the servers facing an unexpected load of players, totally unexpected, they were also hit with a distributed denial of service attack. DDoS attacks can be explained like traffic. All the roads are flowing as usual, highways, smaller streets, everything is fine. Now say someone wants to sabotage the entire American highway system. For the sake of a metaphor, let's say that someone is trying to stop people from getting to a local airport. Somehow, some way, this individual floods the highways and the streets with a bunch of trucks, semis, everything that could clog up a highway because of their slow speed and large size. This causes a huge ton of blockages. It prevents people from getting to the airport on time, and as a result, flights are half empty. Many people don't get through security before the plane is taking off, etc. This is basically what happened to the Blizzard service. A bunch of traffic entered them, and they weren't able to operate properly as a result. No one has stepped up to take credit for the early access attack, nor has any specific reason been hinted at or speculated by Blizzard. However, we could say that it was a slighted employee. Maybe she got slapped on the ass in front of all the executives of Blizzard and then they all laughed at her. Maybe it was a Hispanic woman who was tired of being told to cook for the entire team and being told that she needed to clean all the floors every single day that she was in the office. In which case, I'm not going to say it was wrong. So many people were treated horribly at Blizzard. There are so many reasons that this DDoS attack could have happened, but considering the lawsuit that nobody is really talking about that happened in Minecraft, I think it's something to take into consideration. Players would join a queue to get in the game. It's really funny seeing screenshots because I saw one that was like 40,000 players in front of you, and the guy's like, you would wait for an inordinate amount of time to get through that queue, and then as soon as you got to the front and it was loading, you'd get sent to the back of the line. Honestly, hilariously tragic scandal. Especially in the case of the Smurfs. Did you know that Smurfs are called Stroms in Europe? I don't know like what specific language, but they're called Stroms. I didn't know that until I went to Europe to visit family, and we passed this giant Smurf statue, and my cousin was like, "Mira, un Strom!" And I was like, what the fuck did you just call me? Smurfy is a stinky little game cheat. It's the worst, scummiest game cheat in my opinion. That refers to a high-ranked player creating a new account to get up through the ranks easier by absolutely like shitting on smaller players. It's very mean, and I think that hacking is a more honorable form of cheating. There's a layer of separation that you can't fix. It's not like, oh, if I was better I could fix this. It's like, this person is cheating. They have the ones and the zeros. They are hacking away. There's just something really soul-crushing about buying a new game, getting really excited for it, and as soon as you step in, someone just absolutely obliterates you and teabags your mother. Like, this is the equivalent of acing Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader as a PhD holder. It's just dishonorable. Smurfing was a huge problem in '01. So, to combat this, Blizzard said you have to verify your identity through SMS. You don't know what SMS is. You have an iPhone. Oh. What a tragedy. This is all Apple's fault. Everything is Apple's fault. Nobody listens to me. They have exclusionary business practices, built-in obsolescence. You are going to type your hate comment to me with 8 gigabytes of RAM. Most people in the US have iPhones as opposed to the rest of the world, which have different types of Androids. iPhones do not support SMS messaging. Instead, they have their own text messaging service called iMessage. This means that most of the players that tried out early access were not able to get in. The problem was rectified when 3 days later, Blizzard removed the identification process on October 7th. But again, I feel like this was a massive oversight on Blizzard's part. While a huge amount of O1 player base was from South Korea and China, the United States is where Blizzard is located. Your most loyal fan base will be the one that is local. They are the ones that are most likely to stick around for the sequel. I'm not saying that Blizzard should have focused on the American audience and only allowed them to verify their identity through iMessage. I'm just saying they should have had the option open, so that way you wouldn't exclude one huge part of your player base for the other. Nobody learned their lesson. People still use iPhones more than Android in the US. That just must have been delightfully unpleasant for y'all for a couple days, so. The early access scandal, though, was not why Jeff Kaplan left. Personally, I believe he owns an Android, because I don't think he'd ever do that to me, so. He left because even in this early access, there were hints of stinginess. In this early access, there was no PvE, no story missions, no skill trees, nada. But players gave Blizzard the benefit of the doubt, because while Blizzard was now facing serious accusations of employee abuse, gamers have never really been known for their deeply held morals. The PvE element was stated to be released later. However, in May 2023, the developers effectively told their player base to go eat a bag of overly expensive dog doo-doo, and then players did. Everyone stuck around. They ate Blizzard shit for an entire year. Within that year, Blizzard delayed PvE, then said it was only going to be available when the official game was released. And then they said the PvE was scrapped because of how it would impact PvP, a game mode that Blizzard had already mastered and won so many awards because of. Stinginess. Don't worry, guys. Story-based events are going to replace these. Don't even worry about it. They'll literally be a completely perfect replacement for PvE, but it's not like every single story-based event mission that we have provided up to this point has been average at best. It's not like it has never impacted the current story. It's not like Blizzard is gonna charge you 15 American dollars to play one of these missions that used to be free. Oh wait, they are? I made that up for the bit, like, one part would be true and the other would be fake, like, isn't that crazy? Like, that's so unrealistic. Oh. We'll see where that goes. O2 was released on August 10, 2023 to mild applause. And from that point, it was all downhill from there. Which is what I would say if you have just watched this entire video and you fully well know it was downhill from day one. As soon as it was announced, things were going downhill. This has been everything leading up to Overwatch 1 and 2's release. The elements that I've been talking about with the business practices will be in the later installment of my Overwatch Non-Player's Guide video series, wherein we will finally talk about the stinginess, the scumminess that Blizzard was engaging in and how they cut so many corners. The square that was Overwatch 1 became the circle of Overwatch 2. Honestly, I wasn't even around for most of this. I got like hints of it, like I heard Jeff Kaplan left Overwatch. I heard that PvE was removed later on. I laughed at everyone. It's so funny to me because why did you trust these people? It is just another game company. Yes, there are people that are good in there, but like, there was a widespread sexual harassment scandal there. I don't know what you were expecting. This wasn't even the same company anymore. Not only did Jeff Kaplan leave, the lead creative director, I believe, of Overwatch, Michael Chu, left, and the lead hero designer, whose name I can't remember, but his name is going to be right there on that TV, he left as well. The heads of the game were replaced by other people, and it seems that the people that were in charge of Overwatch, like executives, were already putting in plans to completely change Overwatch 2's monetization system. So it feels like Jeff was really the last bastion of player advocacy. Let's just keep our critical thinking skills intact next time, babes. This has been the first installment in my Overwatch Non-Player's Guide series. Subscribe to keep an eye out for the next one. If you'd like to eventually watch the whole series, I will release a video essay which will be each episode compiled into one behemoth. Don't heavily consider leaving a like. Just do it. Manifest all those loot boxes that you were so excited to open. You had finally earned them. Bask in it. See you next time. Bye!